I still remember the sound of their laughter as it faded into the dark. It's the kind of sound that sticks with you, echoes in your head long after it's gone. At first, it felt surreal, like a prank that went too far. Like they'd looped the car around and come back for me, giggling and shouting gotcha out the window. I waited and waited, but the car didn't turn around. No headlights, no gravel crunching, just empty road, thick trees, and the buzz of crickets rising in the humid Georgia air. I didn't know how long I stood there. Minutes maybe longer, staring down the road like an idiot. My arms were crossed at first, then I dropped them. I looked down at my shoes, scuffed and dusty, and kicked a rock toward the ditch. Nothing felt real yet. Kimberly had done some petty things before. So had her friends. The four of them had this twisted kind of friendship, like middle school mean girls who never grew up. And me? I was the husband they all tolerated, the butt of the joke, the guy they teased and rolled their eyes at when they thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes when we were all together, I'd hear one of them mutter, "God, he's so dramatic," or "Kim, how do you deal with him?" And they'd all laugh like it was cute, like I was some annoying little brother tagging along. I should have left long ago. I can admit that now. But when you've built a life with someone, even if it's a flimsy, patchwork thing held together with duct tape and denial, it's hard to just walk away. You keep telling yourself it'll get better, that she's just stressed, that maybe you're the problem, and if you just try harder, she'll come around. We were at dinner with her family, someplace on the outskirts of Savannah, her aunt's house, I think. Long gravel driveway, overcooked ham, cheap wine, the works. I barely spoke the whole time. Every time I tried, Kimberly would cut me off or redirect the conversation. Britt made some passive-aggressive comment about men who don't know when to shut up, and everyone laughed. I laughed too, out of habit, out of fear maybe. Afterward, as we got in the car to leave, I thought we were going home. Instead, Kimberly asked if we could swing by this scenic overlook she used to go to in high school. "It's just a little detour," she said, nudging my knee like we were in on some secret together. I sat in the front seat, sandwiched between Jess and the window, while the other two squeezed in the back, blasting some throwback playlists from college. They were in their own world. I was just a ride-along. We pulled over eventually, just a random stretch of road, no overlook in sight, and Kimberly told me to get out and stretch my legs. "You look tense," she said, like she was doing me a favor. I stepped out, still thinking this was just another joke, the kind they'd tell later with wine glasses in hand, laughing about how I actually got out. But as soon as I shut the door behind me, Jess leaned forward, said something I couldn't hear over the music, and Kimberly slammed the gas. I was too stunned to move. The car lurched forward, tires spitting dust, and then it was gone. Just like that. Their laughter trailed behind them, high-pitched and mean, until it dissolved into the night. I didn't shout, didn't chase them. What would be the point? I'd done that before, metaphorically. Chased their approval. Chased apologies that never came. I stood there until the night settled fully around me, until the weight of it all landed like a stone in my chest. No phone, no wallet, no way to call a cab or get an Uber even if I wanted to. Kimberly had taken my phone earlier to queue up a playlist and apparently just never gave it back. I patted my pockets more out of instinct than hope. Empty. I walked for a while, no clue where I was heading. The stars were dim behind clouds, the kind of overcast that holds in the heat, makes the air feel like soup. I could hear frogs in the marshy ditch nearby and the occasional rustle in the woods that made me tense up, imagining wild animals or worse, other people. Bad people. Every pair of headlights in the distance made my heart jump. I didn't want to explain why I was walking down a county road alone in the middle of the night like some escaped lunatic. What would I even say? My wife ditched me for fun. Eventually, I found a patch of overgrown grass under a busted street lamp, the light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to give up or keep going. I sat down, my back against the pole, and let the quiet wash over me. My legs ached. My neck was sore from tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I rested my head back and stared up at the stuttering light. That's when the laughter came back, not in the air but in my head. I could still hear them. Kimberly's high-pitched cackle, Jess snorting like she always did when something really cracked her up, Britt screaming, "Oh my God, we actually did it," and Meg wheezing from the back seat. Like a damn movie reel stuck on loop, playing the moment over and over. I wasn't even angry yet. Not really. I just felt hollow, like the bottom dropped out, and I was free falling into something I didn't have a name for. It wasn't just about tonight. It was everything. The years of sideways comments. The times Kimberly joked about trading me in for someone with a real career. The way she introduced me as Tyler, my husband, but don't hold that against him. All those little humiliations I let slide because I thought love meant patience. Because I believed in us, even when she didn't. I don't know how long I sat there. Time got weird. At some point, I lay down, using my arm as a pillow, and watched the street lamp twitch above me. I was exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't let me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that car peeling off, the tires spinning, the way Kimberly didn't even look back. Something changed in me that night. Something broke open. And once it did, I knew I wasn't going home. I didn't know where I was going yet, but it wouldn't be back there. Not to that house. Not to her. Not to any of I. The sun came up slow and heavy, like it was reluctant to shine on someone like me. I hadn't slept, not really. Just drifted in and out under that flickering street lamp, wrapped in the kind of numbness that makes you forget you're even human for a little while. My back hurt from the concrete, and my arm had fallen asleep hours ago. I sat up stiffly, brushing the dew off my sleeves. The road was still empty, just as quiet as it had been all night, except now the birds were starting to chirp like they had something to be proud of. I hated them for it. My stomach growled, and I realized I hadn't eaten since dinner at Kimberly's aunt's place. That felt like a lifetime ago. I stood up slowly, legs aching, and started walking again. There was nowhere to go, but doing nothing felt worse. Each step felt heavier than the last, like I was carrying years of mistakes on my back. I must have walked for half an hour before I heard it, the low rumble of an engine behind me. I turned just in time to see a big red semi slow down and pull over onto the gravel. It hissed as it stopped, dust billowing around it like smoke. The door opened with a metallic creak, and a guy stepped out, wiping his hands on a rag. "You all right there, friend?" he called out. I hesitated for a second. My first instinct was to lie. Say, "Yeah, I'm fine, just out for a walk." But the truth was written all over me. Sweat-stained shirt, dirty jeans, no bag, no phone, no clue. So I nodded slowly and said, "Not really." The guy looked to be in his mid-50s. Weathered face, gray beard, wearing a faded Braves cap. He gave me a long once-over before jerking his thumb toward the cab. "Come on, I'll take you to the next town. Ain't much, but there's a diner and a gas station. You can figure things out from there." I didn't ask for his name. Didn't even tell him mine. I just climbed up into the passenger seat, grateful for the AIC and the smell of stale coffee over body odor. The cab was cluttered with snack wrappers and empty bottles, a mess that somehow felt comforting. Like someone lived in here. Someone real. We didn't talk much at first. He turned the radio down and just drove, his eyes fixed on a road like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I stared out the window, watching the Georgia countryside blur past. Fields of tall grass, rusted fences, barns that looked half collapsed but still standing. Somehow, it all felt more alive than I did. About an hour in, he finally broke the silence. "You running from something or headed toward it?" I didn't answer right away. I just let the question hang in the cab like a loose thread. Eventually, I said, "Little of both, I think." He nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Yeah, I've been there." We stopped once for gas and coffee. He bought me a breakfast sandwich and didn't make a thing out of it, just handed it to me like it was the most natural thing in the world. I sat on the curb while he pumped diesel, unwrapping the sandwich and eating slowly. Every bite felt like swallowing guilt. I kept expecting to hear from Kimberly, some angry voicemail, or at least a fake concerned text asking where I'd run off to. But I had no phone, no contact, nothing tying me to anything anymore. Back on the road, he asked where I was headed. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Well," he grunted, shifting gears, "I'm headed west. Gotta drop in Austin, but I can let you off before that if something feels right." Something about that line stuck with me. If something feels right. I didn't even know what that meant anymore. My whole life had been built on forcing things that didn't feel right, pretending they did, smiling through humiliation, nodding along when people laughed at my expense because it was easier than speaking up. I made myself small for so long that I didn't know what it felt like to take up space anymore. We crossed the Georgia line sometime in the afternoon. The scenery started to shift, less green, more scrub and flatland. It felt like the world was stretching out, giving me room to breathe for the first time in years. I started to talk more. Told him a little about what happened. Not all the details, just enough. He nodded along, didn't interrupt. At one point, he said, "Sounds like you've been hanging on to the wrong people, son." I almost laughed at how simple he made it sound. But he was right. I've been hanging on to scraps, hoping they'd eventually look like something whole. We pulled into a small town just past the Louisiana border, a place so small it didn't even have a proper sign. Just a faded green marker that read, "Welcome to Fairview." There was a diner, a gas station, and a bait shop that looked like it hadn't seen business in a decade. It wasn't much, but it felt like the right place to stop. He parked in the gravel lot beside the diner and turned to me. "You sure about this one?" I looked out the window. A dog was lying on the porch outside the bait shop, tongue lolling, not a care in the world. I nodded. "Yeah, I think I need to be here for a bit." He handed me a crumpled $5 bill and said, "Get yourself some coffee and figure out your next step. You don't have to know everything right now." I took the bill with shaking fingers and thanked him. He just waved it off and started the engine again. "Good luck, Tyler," he said. I froze. I hadn't told him my name. I was sure of it. I looked up, but he was already pulling away, merging back onto the road like nothing had happened. I stood there for a long time, holding that $5 bill like it meant something bigger than it did. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe he guessed. Or maybe the universe was finally trying to say something, and I was just too damn tired to hear it clearly. All I knew was that I wasn't going back. Not to Kimberly. Not to the people who laughed as they left me on the side of the road like trash. Not to the version of myself that allowed it all to happen. That man had been left behind in the dirt of a Georgia County road. And whoever I was now, I had no idea yet. But I was about to find out. I spent the first hour in that diner nursing the cheapest cup of coffee I'd ever had. It tasted like burnt cardboard, but it was hot and it came with free refills, so I kept sipping. The waitress didn't ask questions. She was older, maybe late 60s, with silver hair twisted into a bun and hands that looked like they'd served 1,000 tired men before me. I think she saw something in me. Something broken. She never pried. Just refilled my cup every time it got low and gave me a soft smile like she knew better than to ask. After the second refill, I walked outside to get some air. The town was dead quiet. A breeze kicked up dust from the edge of the road and carried the faint smell of fried grease and something sweet, maybe fresh pie cooling somewhere inside the diner. Across the street was a squat red brick building with a hand-painted sign, Bastrop Shelter, Church of Grace. Below it, in smaller letters, it said, "All welcome. No judgment." I stood there staring at it for a while. The words felt like an invitation. Or a dare. I crossed the street slowly, the way you do when you're not sure what waits for you on the other side. The inside of the building was cooler than I expected. Quiet, too. There was a desk just past the entrance with a metal bell on it and a stack of sign-in forms, all half filled out with names I didn't recognize. I hovered there for a moment before I heard a voice behind me. "You look like a man who's had the ground pulled out from under him." I turned around and saw him, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a worn flannel shirt and cargo pants. Military buzz cut, face like leather. He held a mop in one hand, but he wasn't just a janitor. I could tell by the way he stood, like he owned the space. "Name's Mel," he said, setting the mop aside and offering a hand. "You need a place to sleep?" I nodded, just for a little while. He didn't ask why. He didn't ask what I was running from. He just pointed down the hall. "Third room on the left's empty. Linens are clean. Locks busted, but nobody here steals. Bathroom's at the end. You hungry?" I hesitated. "A little." "Good," he said. "We've got leftover spaghetti from last night. You're welcome to it if you don't mind microwaving." That's how it started. No judgment. Just spaghetti in a quiet room with a mattress that creaked when I lay down. I stayed in that room for 3 days before I could even think about what came next. I didn't talk much. I just walked around the block a few times a day, tried to help Mel clean up, and kept my head down. Eventually, I asked Mel if he knew of any work. He scratched his chin. "You know how to keep your head down and your hands busy?" I nodded. There's a place on the edge of town, he said. Seafood joint called Ruby's Catch. Old friend of mine owns it. She's mean as hell and twice as tired. Always looking for help. That same afternoon, Mel made a call and handed me a slip of paper with a time written on it. Show up at 4. Don't be late. Don't give her attitude. She'll respect that. Ruby's Catch sat along a bend in the highway, flanked by rusted trailers and a row of empty boat slips. It had a tilted wooden sign with a cartoon shrimp giving a thumbs up, half the letters faded by sun. Inside smelled like fried batter and salt water, with a touch of bleach. Ruby was waiting behind the counter. Mid-40s, hair buzzed close to her scalp, scar cutting down her right eyebrow like a strike of lightning. She looked at me once, then turned around and tossed me a pair of rubber gloves. Back sink's yours. Don't quit without telling me. Don't steal food. If you're hungover, don't come in. If you're late, don't come back. Got it? Yes, ma'am. She stared for another second, like she was daring me to flinch, then nodded. Good. Clock in. The work was miserable. Fish guts, dishwater, floors so slippery I nearly cracked my skull twice. I came home every night smelling like fryer oil and old shrimp. But I slept. Really slept. The kind of sleep that comes when you're too tired to dream. Mel helped me get my birth certificate mailed in from my old hometown. Then my social. Then a cheap state ID. It took time, a stack of forms, and a level of patience I didn't think I had. But slowly, the pieces started falling into place. I got a prepaid debit card, a cheap burner phone, started tracking my hours, and stashing away every dime I didn't spend on food or soap. I didn't talk about Kimberly. I didn't talk about the night she left me on the side of the road. Not to Mel, not to Ruby, not to anyone. As far as anyone in Bastrop knew, I was just a guy named Tyler who came out of nowhere and worked like hell to stay invisible. And honestly, I liked it that way. I bought the phone at a gas station just off the highway, $29.99 plus tax. Came with 20 minutes of talk time and a screen so small I had to squint to read anything. It was cheap, slow, and ugly, but it was mine. My first real connection to the world in weeks. I waited until the end of the day to turn it on. I was sitting outside the shelter on a folding chair that leaned a little to the left, watching the sun melt down behind the church roof. The phone buzzed the second it connected. 7 missed calls. For voicemails. Kimberly's number was the first one. Then Jess. Then Britt. Then an unfamiliar one I didn't recognize, but I had a gut feeling it was Meg. I just stared at the screen for a while, thumb hovering over the button to play the first message. I didn't want to hear it, but I knew I had to. I couldn't pretend they didn't exist forever. Not yet, anyway. I listened to Kimberly's first. Her voice was strained, panicked in that way only someone who knows they did something unforgivable can sound. Tyler, hey, I don't know where you are, but look, I'm sorry. We thought you were right behind us. We were joking around, and I don't know, we didn't mean for it to go that far. Please call me. Just let me know you're okay. Right behind us. That's what she said. I laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. It was such a bold-faced lie that it felt like a punchline. Like I was the idiot who didn't get the joke until the curtain dropped and the crowd was already laughing. I played the next message. Just this time. She didn't even fake concern. Okay, so we maybe went too far, but come on, Ty. Don't be so dramatic. You've always been kind of soft. We didn't leave you in the middle of nowhere. We figured you'd catch a ride. I mean, seriously, lighten up. We were just having fun. I deleted that one before it even finished. My fingers were shaking now, but not from sadness. Not even anger, really. Something colder. Like a switch had flipped, and I was watching all of this from the outside. The third voicemail was shorter. Britt, barely hiding her amusement. Hope you're enjoying your walk, Mountain Man. Maybe now you'll grow a pair. That one stayed on the phone a little longer. I played it twice just to let it sink in. That was what they thought of me. That's what they had always thought. Kimberly didn't love me. Jess didn't respect me. Britt barely saw me as human. And Meg? Her number came last, and she didn't leave a voicemail at all. I turned the phone off and sat on the porch beside me. The sky was turning a deep orange, and the air had that late summer heaviness to it. You could almost taste the dirt and sweat on your tongue. For the first time since I'd arrived in Bastrop, I let myself feel it, grief, embarrassment, rage. But it didn't overwhelm me. It settled into my bones like a second skin. I picked the phone back up and scrolled to Kimberly's contact. Then Jess. Britt, Meg. One by one, I blocked them all. No goodbye. No explanations. Just a clean cut. That night, I laid in bed at the shelter and stared at the ceiling fan above me as it spun in slow, uneven circles. I thought I'd feel something, free, maybe relieved, but all I felt was stillness. And that was enough. The next morning, I told Mel I was moving out. He didn't ask why, just nodded and said, "You'll need furniture." "I've got a pillow and a backpack," I said. "That's enough for now." He smiled, handed me a folded paper towel with 2 phone numbers on it. "Try these. One's a guy who rents out old trailers for cash. The other'll haul a mattress out of the dump for $10. That's how I got my place. It was a beat-up aluminum trailer with 3 tires and a door that stuck if you closed it too hard. The floor creaked in all the wrong places, and the plumbing made a noise like it was choking on gravel every time I flushed. But it was mine. I paid in cash, signed nothing, and got the keys the same day. Ruby didn't ask where I was living now. She didn't care. She only cared that I showed up on time, kept the kitchen clean, and didn't complain about the smell. I kept my head down, worked the prep station in the back, cleaned the fryers, mopped the walk-in cooler, took out bags of fish guts that weighed more than I did. My hands stayed raw from bleach and scrubbing, and my back ached in places I didn't even know had muscles. But I was tired in a good way, in the way that makes you forget your name for a few hours each night and just collapse into sleep without thinking too hard. No one in town knew me. I was just the quiet guy at Ruby's who always wore a hat low over his eyes and used different names on his name tag every week. Some of the waitstaff thought it was a joke. I let them. One week, I was Caleb. Next, I was Eddie. Then Ryan. It became a thing. A harmless mystery. No one pushed. No one pried. And I never gave them a reason to. I didn't check the burner phone much after that first week. I kept it off unless I needed it to clock in or out. No more voicemails. No more laughter. No more excuses. I was a ghost, and I liked it that way. Invisibility was freedom. Let me know if you're ready for part 5 or want any tone or pacing adjustments here. There's this moment right before the sun dips below the horizon when everything gets quiet. The birds go still, the air cools down just a little, and even the lake looks like it's holding its breath. That's where I was. On the porch, an old wooden one-lily had helped me sand and stain, watching the water shimmer like glass in the dying light. She was beside me, curled up with her knees to her chest, a book in her lap, but long forgotten. We didn't say much. We didn't have to. That was one of the best parts of being with Lily. No pressure to fill the silence, no need to perform. Just presence. I'd never told her everything. Not about Kimberly. Not about Jess and Britt and Meg. She knew pieces. How I ended up in Bastrop, how I didn't talk to my family anymore, how I'd once been someone I barely recognized now. But she never pushed. She just listened when I talked and held space when I couldn't. That was enough. Ruby's catch had changed too. The place got busier. A few travel blogs had picked it up as a hidden gem between Austin and nowhere, and suddenly we had tourists showing up in floppy hats asking about sustainable shrimp. Ruby, somehow, was still the same. Sharp tongue, quick hands, and zero patience for anyone who couldn't handle a rush. She made me shift manager about 6 months back, said she was tired of keeping track of inventory. I think she just didn't want to deal with the health inspector anymore. I didn't mind. The work kept me moving, kept me focused. And at night, I'd come home to Lily, to the cluttered little trailer by the lake, to quiet dinners and soft music and books stacked in every corner. We had our routines. Sundays were for groceries and laundry. Wednesdays were for tacos. Saturdays were for sleeping in and drinking coffee on the porch until noon. It wasn't a flashy life, but it was honest, simple, real. Every now and then, the past tried to creep back in. A letter from Kimberly showed up once. No return address, just my name scrawled on the envelope. I recognized the handwriting before I even opened it. Inside was a single photo of my mother, lying in a hospital bed, eyes closed, tubes in her nose. No explanation. Just a post that stuck to the back with the words, "Thought you'd want to know." I didn't. Not really. But I still went. Took a Greyhound out, wore a ball cap low over my face, didn't tell Lily why I was going or how long I'd be. I just said, "It's something I need to see through," and she nodded, kissed my cheek, and handed me a bag with snacks and a paperback tucked inside. When I got to the hospital, Kimberly was already there, sitting beside the bed like she belonged there, like the months hadn't passed. She looked tired. Her hair was shorter, streaked with gray. Her nails were still perfectly done, though. Some things don't change. She looked up when I entered, eyes wide, but she didn't say anything. Neither did I. I just stood there for a beat, looked at my mother, frail, asleep, smaller than I remembered, then placed a note on the bedside table. My new address. That was all it said. Then I turned and walked out. I didn't hear from her again. Not right away. Weeks later, Kimberly showed up at the diner with Jess and Meg. Britt wasn't there. I didn't ask why. They looked different. Older. Worn down. Kimberly had bags under her eyes and a way of holding herself like she didn't want to be seen. Jess still had that smugness tucked in the corners of her mouth, but looked cracked now. Meg barely made eye contact. Just kept fidgeting with her sleeves like she'd rather be anywhere else. I was behind the counter, wiping down the register when they walked in. Ruby wasn't around. Thank God. And most of the regulars had cleared out. They approached slowly, like they weren't sure if I'd turn and run or explode. Tyler, Kimberly said first. Voice soft. Careful. Can we talk? I didn't respond. Just reached into the drawer behind me, pulled out a plain white envelope, and handed it to her. She opened it right there, unfolded the slip of paper inside, and stared at it. $58. That's what it said. In cash. The price of a one-way bus ticket from Savannah to Bastrop. I had looked it up weeks ago, on a whim. Just to know. Kimberly blinked. What is this? I met her eyes for the first time since that night on the road. That's what you're worth to me now. Jess scoffed. Wow. Real mature. I didn't even look at her. I turned around, walked into the kitchen, and didn't come back out. From the little window in the swinging door, I watched them argue in the parking lot. Jess was furious, arms flailing. Kimberly looked like she might cry. Meg stood off to the side, hugging her purse like a shield. Eventually, they got into the car and left. I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not guilt, not satisfaction, just nothing, which in its own way was peace. That night, I went home and found Lily sitting on the porch, barefoot, drinking tea and reading something about ancient history. She looked up and smiled, and I felt everything soften inside me. I walked over, sat beside her, and rested my hand on her knee. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I think I am. We watched the lake until the last bit of sunlight disappeared and the stars came out one by one. I didn't think about the road, or the street lamp, or the laughter fading into the night. I didn't wonder if they ever looked back. Because I didn't. I had no reason to anymore. This was my life now. Quiet. Earned. Whole. And for the first time in years, I didn't want to be anywhere else.